How's it going, everyone? My name is Blake Holmes, and this is Hot Takes with Holmes coming at you on YouTube and on Twitch, Nugget Station 21, Nugget Station 2117. Be sure to hit that follow button and that subscribe button to let me know how I'm doing with my content if you like what you see. I have my links down below for Twitch and the YouTube channel, and if you wanted to check out any more of that, you can check me out there. What I've got here for you today is the second video in a series that we were doing, basically ranking the top shooting guards, the starting shooting guards for the 22 NBA playoff teams coming back this season at the end of July. We did this with the point guards about 2 weeks ago, and when I did that, we only did the top 16 teams. We didn't do the 22 because it was still kind of up in the air. We didn't know how many teams were going to be coming back at that point, but it's official, 22, and I've got all the shooting guards right here. Some of the players you see up there, you may look at it and think, well, sometimes they're small forwards, sometimes they don't start, things like that. What we've done is we have taken either A, the player who has been hurt and came back and looks to be continuing to play, or the player that has played the most games at that position. The player that's been hurt and is coming back, Victor Oladipo, something like that. Oladipo is the star of that Pacers team. Just came back at the end of the season this year. He'll be the shooting guard for the Pacers. Clearly, it's not going to be Jeremy Lamb for them. On the other hand, a player who's spent the most time in that position, Danny Green and Fred VanVleet. Danny Green's a wild card because it's weird with the Lakers because LeBron played point guard the most, but we don't consider him a point guard. He's a listed small forward. So Danny Green was the most active listed shooting guard in the starting lineup for the Lakers. That's why he's there. And Fred VanVleet, point guard listed, spent the most time as the two guard behind Kyle Lowry. So he is on the list for the shooting guards. If you like what you see today, be sure to drop a like on the video. Let me know once again, what you like about it, what you don't like. Let me know what you want to see, and know if we should keep this series going. Starting off, we've got Bradley Beal. This list is in alphabetical order as well. No bias or anything like that. There's no foreshadowing by any means by these. These are all alphabetical. Bradley Beal is the first player on this list, and I'm going to start off with a bang. Some people may not agree with me. Some people think maybe not, but Bradley Beal is an S-tier player. I don't think that's even up for debate. 30.5 points per game this year. He's the entire reason the Wizards are where they are. He's the heart and soul of that team. I wonder if he is going to stay in Washington after everything is said and done, but especially when John Wall does find his way back onto the court, if they can work their differences aside, that backcourt's going to be lethal, going to be deadly. Again, 30.5 points per game this year. Actually averaging a career high in assists as well. 6.1 assists per game. That's solid numbers. That is spectacular numbers from Bradley Beal and this vengeance trying to get to the playoff run, and played in every single game, played in pretty much every single game that the Wizards had played in at that point. An Iron Man to say the least. Bradley Beal, S-tier player, and I don't even really think that's really up for much debate. Up next is Devin Booker. Devin Booker is an interesting player in the sense that he is a classic example. What scares me, he is a good player, a great player even, on a bad team. And those exist, like the Eric Bledsoes of the world, things like that. You look at his stats here, 26 points per game, made his first All-Star game this season off of a little bit of a technicality, but 26 points per game in his 5th NBA season. That is incredible. That is just spectacular development from D-Book. But I sometimes wonder what we could possibly see from him if he were the second or third option. He's taking a lot of shots, but this year, his field goal percentage has improved. He's 48% from the field, 36% from three, which is very, very respectable. He's getting his teammates involved. Past 2 years, average well over 6 assists per game. I like D-Book, and because of that, he is an A-tier shooting guard with the potential. I don't even think it's potential. I think it's just a matter of time before he gets into the S-tier, especially if he can work something out in Phoenix or get out of that system to really flourish in the postseason. But for now, A-tier shooting guard, definitely an interesting player that's going to be a long-lasting player in the league in the future. Up next is Dillon Brooks. I'm not going to waste any time. I like Dillon Brooks. I don't have any problems with Dillon Brooks. He's actually improved his play a lot this season. Started all 65 games for the Grizzlies. 15.7 points per game. He was averaging 7.5 the year before. He moves to shooting guard, clearly flourishes a little bit. 2 assists per game as well. John Morant is the story of this team, but for the fact that he's still young and he's shown flashes, I'm going to leave him in the D tier, especially when you look at some of the players in this list. There's better options, absolutely, in the league, but there's certainly worse. And because of that, not bad, not spectacular. Dillon Brooks, a D tier shooting guard on my list. Jaylen Brown is the next one. Brown is one of those players that he has impressed me so much in this last season. Was the third option for the first 3 years pretty much on his team. Now he comes into this season, still the third option, but he's averaging 20 points per game, 20.5 points per game. 49% from the field, incredible. 38% from three. I never expected to see that from him coming into the NBA. And what did he do to prove me wrong? He shot over 34% every single season, which is all four that he's been in the NBA so far. The dude gets after it on the glass as well. I think that Jaylen Brown is one of the bright players in the future of the NBA. Based on where he's at right now, I'm going to put him in the B tier just because, you have a guy like Devin Booker averaging 26 points per game in the A tier. Bradley Beal averages 30. He's not quite to that tier yet. Again, same thing with Devin Booker. I think it's only a matter of time before Jaylen Brown finds himself into these upper tiers and gets it done in the future. Up next is Jimmy Butler. Everyone knows Jimmy Butler as the fiery, energetic player for the Miami Heat. He's played for a number of teams in his career at this point, but this is his first season with the Heat, and he has really blossomed. He's really taken that team to limits that we didn't really expect from that Miami team, a decently young team as well. He's averaging 20 points per game this year, so not the highest it's ever been, but it's also still a pretty respectable amount. Plus, on the playmaking side, he's averaging the most assists in his career to this point, averaging the most rebounds in his career to this point, both over six rebounds and 6 assists per game. 49% from the field for, effective field goal percentage of 47%. A solid play. The only knock on his game right now is he is only shooting 24% from the three-point line this season. Not what we're usually accustomed to seeing from Jimmy Butler, but because of what he brings from a competitive edge, we've seen Miami go from a solid, not spectacular team to one of the best teams in the East when Jimmy Butler comes over. A-tier shooting guard, basically just because of what he brings on the edge and how he's able to control the way a team plays. The dude is great. The dude's going to come out and make his team. He's going to bring out the best in his teammates. A-tier shooting guard from me. DeMar DeRozan. I'm going to go ahead and say this. DeMar DeRozan, if this were a regular season award, a regular season list, he would be up there. Really, really up there. But this is the postseason that we're talking about. There's still a chance. He took the Denver Nuggets to 7 games as a Spur last season in the playoffs for his first year. He'll have a chance to try to get into the playoffs with this restart. To me, he's a B-tier shooting guard. Definitely worse options to have. Still averaging 22 points a game, but when you look at his postseason past, his experience, I have to go ahead and take the safe bet. Solid shooting guard, not the one that I'm looking for to get it done when it comes towards, normally it'd be June, July, but now it's going to be a little bit longer. I have him in the B tier for this list. Evan Fournier. This is a guy that's kind of interesting in the sense that this season, Evan Fournier has had an extremely solid year compared to what he's done in his career. Started with the Denver Nuggets, went to Orlando for a starting role, and he's been a sneaky good scorer ever since then, averaging 18, close to 19 points per game on 40% from three and 47% from the field. That is incredible. That's a great season for him. It's the highest career average in his career yet, and he's a large reason why the Magic are where they are. The problem with Fournier is his defensive ability, at least at times. I think he's got the ability to play well on defense, but he just doesn't show it a whole lot. He gets active in the passing lanes, averages a steal per game, but I'm going to put him in the C tier just because that jump cannot go unnoticed. The dude is just balling out this year for the Magic, but his defensive edge is what kind of keeps him in that C tier right there. Paul George. Paul George is an A-tier shooting guard. I know a lot of people are thinking, Blake, he just averaged 28 per game last year with the Thunder. He was an MVP candidate last year for the Thunder, and you're correct. But this is not the OKC Thunder Paul George. This is Clippers Paul George. And Paul George for the Clippers has frankly fallen back into his average for his career. His average is right around 21 points per game. That's where he's at. Solid numbers, spectacular numbers. His assists are down. His rebounds are down. He's just not the same player he was in Oklahoma City and even in Indiana at times as far as that goes. But still plays well enough on the defensive and the offensive end. And plus, the ability, the experience that he brings, and along with Kawhi, he's going to be an A-tier shooting guard pretty easily. I thought about putting him in the S-tier, but again, I am ranking Clippers Paul George so far, not Thunder Paul George. A-tier for him. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Interesting player here in the sense that his rookie season was solid. Nothing that was jumping off the page and really just solidifying himself on a roster by any means, or actually solidifying himself as a star, I should say. But this season for the OKC Thunder, he has been the second best player on the team, and I don't even think it's really been close. 19 points per game, 3 assists per game, 6 rebounds per game as a point guard / shooting guard. It's funny that the OKC Thunder, their two best players are both primarily point guards, and yet they've played as well as they have. Chris Paul and him have formed a lethal backcourt that a lot of people didn't really necessarily see coming into the season. And because of his efforts and the jump that he's made, close to 20 points per game, he's going in the B tier. Same thing as Jaylen Brown, DeMar DeRozan. Same thing with Jaylen Brown especially. Has the potential to jump into that A tier, S tier in the future of his career. But for now, he gets after it on the defensive end. He's able to score the basketball in a pretty effective clip. I like him in the B tier for now, but high potential to go up into the future. Next, we've got Danny Green. Folks, I like Danny Green. Danny Green is an underrated portion of when the Spurs made those deep playoff runs against LeBron's Heat. For now, he's an F-tier player, at least in this list. I want to go ahead and clarify. If I put someone in the F tier for this list, it does not, F and D tier, it does not mean they are bad NBA players. It just means compared to the rest of the talent on this list, I just don't see them stacking up. Danny Green is a prime example of that. His three-point percentage is still respectable, 38% from beyond the arc, 42% from the field. He's only averaging 8 points per game. I know the idea is he's taking far less shots playing for a Lakers team that runs through LeBron. But aside from defense and spot-up shooting every once in a while, I don't see a whole lot that Danny Green brings to that lineup. He still gets after on the defensive end and averages over a steal per game. But because of the talent that's on this list, I'm keeping him in the F tier. Lakers don't necessarily rely on Danny Green to win games. They're going to be just fine in the playoffs, and they're probably the favorites as coming into the restart on the 31st of July. But F tier for now for Danny Green. No knock on what he's had as a career. Spectacular volume shooter throughout his career. Tim Hardaway Jr. for the Dallas Mavericks. First off, I want to go ahead and start this off by saying what a run the Dallas Mavericks are on. This is not something that we really expected. Luka Doncic is just a spectacular player. Wesley Matthews does his job well, 15 points per game. But for this list, I'm going to put him on the same tier as Dillon Brooks. He is 27 now, and with starter minutes, close to 30 minutes per game, he's only getting 15 points per game. Shoots 43% from the field, so pretty solid, and 40% from 3. But that's a little bit of an anomaly. The thing that scares me is if he does get into the postseason, and he will get into the postseason. The Mavericks have already clinched a playoff spot. It only scares me about how his three-point shooting will fare in the playoffs. It's only a matter of time, and because of that scare, and because he's just not the same player he was when he was playing for the Knicks and the Hawks and things like that, I'm going to leave him in the D tier for now. Has the potential to fall either in the F tier or even rise to the C tier depending on how he performs in the postseason. And probably one of the least surprising moves on this list, James Harden, S tier player. James Harden is a top 10 NBA player easily. You could argue top 5, absolutely. Harden is on an otherworldly tear these past 2 years, 36 points per game last year, and he follows it up with 34 points per game this season. he's just incredible. 43% from the field, 35% from three. That's not spectacular, but it's still respectable. I know he shoots a lot. I know he has a reputation as a flopper, but the way James Harden has carried the Rockets and the way that he has revolutionized the game of basketball, it cannot go unnoticed. The dude is incredible. I can't say it enough. S tier by far, and Houston wouldn't even have an ounce of the success that they've had without James Harden. Gary Harris, as you probably guessed by my channel name, if you don't know me personally, I like Gary Harris. He is the Nuggets starting shooting guard. The thing about Gary Harris, though, is his offense in the past 2 seasons has been lackluster at best. Aside from a few plays here and there where he's kind of turned some heads, he's not really playing that well on the offensive end. Still shooting a respectable 42% from the field and 33% from three. But from a player that was at one point was averaging close to 18 points per game, he's dropped from 18 to 12 to 10 this year. The reason I'm putting him this high, though, I'm putting him in the C tier. And the reason I'm putting him this high is I will fight anybody on this. Gary Harris is one of the most underrated and best perimeter defenders in the NBA. And that's the main reason he's kept his job as long as he has with the Nuggets. Jamal Murray, not a good defender. But Gary Harris, on the outside, he's going to lock down the star guard as well as he can. And because of his defense alone, that is why he's in the C tier. Offense isn't good enough to get up there into the B and A tier, but defense wins championships. We'll see if the Nuggets can do that this offseason, but C tier for Gary Harris. Up next is Buddy Hield. And Buddy Hield, in the past 2 seasons, has been very, 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 very good for the Sacramento Kings. Close to 20 points per game this season. I think Buddy Hield is one of those just got a new contract as well. I'm going to go ahead and put him in the B tier. Same concept as these 4 guys. Could have the ability to jump up or down in the post, and when it depends on what he does in the restart and in the postseason. But based on what we saw in the regular season, he's scoring at a very effective clip. He is getting his teammates involved to an extent. Has his career average, a career high in assists per game this year, and consistently is able to get to the free throw line pretty well. I like Buddy Hield's game. I think he's one of the best young shooters in the NBA. B tier for now. Has a high probability of potentially getting up into the A and S tiers in the future. Drew Holiday. This is a tough one to grade because if this was Drew Holiday from last year, he would make an A tier without a doubt. But the thing that scares me about Holiday, we know about his defensive edge. We know that he plays decently well in the playoffs. But keeping with the theme so far, I'm going to put him in the B tier. I would rather have these guys over Drew Holiday, and that's kind of what keeps me there. But Holiday's still a solid player. He's going to be 30 years old in the next year. Played very, very well for the Pelicans, 19 points per game. I like Drew Holiday a lot. I'm kind of one that I want the Nuggets go after, potentially, wink, wink. But Holiday, the defensive edge he brings, and his scoring ability, 35% from three, 45% from the field, he makes the B tier on my list. Karis LeVert. LeVert, if I could make a tier, and I could, but that's not too much, I would put him in between the B and C tier. If this was a potential list, he would probably at least be B, maybe even A. I think he's a solid third star for that Nets team whenever they get both Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant back healthy. But I'm going to leave him in the C tier for now. 17 points per game, but high probability that he makes it into that upper echelon in the future, and he could even make it up there by the end of this video, depending on how the list looks. LeVert, solid, good three-point shooter, runs the perimeter very, very well, rebounds the basketball decently well for his size. I like Karis LeVert's game. I think he can be a solid third star for that Nets team. C tier, though, for now, easily could jump other tiers in the future. Wesley Matthews, not going to waste any time. No disrespect to Wesley Matthews, but he's not the same player he was in Portland and even Dallas back in the day. He's playing for the Milwaukee Bucks now, and that's Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton's team. That's not a question. He's not even really the third option or sometimes not even the fourth option. That's Eric Bledsoe is the one that takes the third option there. Averaging only 7.5 points per game, 39% from the field, and 36% from three is pretty good. But the overall field goal percentage is down compared to what it was in his career. Again, no disrespect to Wesley Matthews, but compared to the talent that's on this list, he does not make it out of the F tier, in my opinion. C.J. McCollum. C.J. McCollum still rubs me the wrong way after defeating the Nuggets in the playoffs last season, but the dude can ball. He is a great mid-range shooter. Is one of those guys that, kind of like DeMar DeRozan up here, is one of the game's best mid-range shooters. Takes two dribbles on a pull-up, and he's going to make it 9 out of 10 times. The dude is incredible inside the arc, and even then still shoots 38% from beyond the arc. I like C.J. McCollum's game a lot, and because of that, I'm putting him in the A tier. I said it. 22 points per game this year. I truly believe that the Portland Trailblazers they contend when they're both healthy to be the best backcourt in the NBA. And C.J. McCollum is a large portion. Obviously, Damian Lillard is, in my opinion, the second best point guard in the league. But I like C.J. McCollum's game as well. I think he's able to pick up Lillard when he struggles at times. He makes the A tier on my list. Speaking of A tier, Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell is a bona fide star for the Utah Jazz. There's no question about it at this point. They really got a steal for him at the 13th pick. In the 2017 draft, I believe is what it was. Mitchell's averaging 24 points per game this year. He's getting better every single season, and that's incredible to me. 45% from the field, 36% from three, and his defense. I mean, he's hounded on the defensive end. That's what Utah's identity's been. Him and Rudy Gobert, although not on the best terms anymore due to COVID and the situation that came up right before the season ended. The dude is a young talent that should, if Utah is lucky, they should hang on to him as long as they can. He makes the A tier on my list. Victor Oladipo. This might catch some, I don't know if this will catch criticism or not, but I have to judge them based off of who they are and their player right now. Oladipo right now is a C tier shooting guard. I don't think that... he had one season where he truly just blossomed and was the most improved player his first season in Indiana, averaged 23 points per game. But after that, kind of dipped, went back down to his career average for the past two seasons. However, you can't really blame him. He had a really bad knee injury, put him out for most of last season and then most of this season as well. But he came back for about 13 games. Because of that, I think Oladipo could get back to where he was whenever he was averaging 24 or 23 points per game. But as of right now, I'm going to leave him in the C tier, mostly just because we have no idea what to expect at him when it comes postseason time. Josh Richardson. I love Josh Richardson, former Tennessee Volunteer and former Miami Heat player. He is a D tier shooting guard, mostly because, again, when you look at that Sixers team, a lot of these players, you look at it and you think, what option are they? James Harden, Bradley Beal, clearly the number one options on their team. Danny Green, Wesley Matthews, not the number one options on their team. Josh Richardson, very, very similar thing. Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Al Horford, a lot of players that are more capable of scoring. However, he's still able to score at a pretty effective rate, considering he's probably the third or fourth option and at best for that team. Averaging close to 14 points per game in that situation. I like his game. I like his ability to shoot behind the arc. And I think he's a good guy for the Sixers to have in the postseason. Is a very underrated defender as well. Close to a block and a steal per game as a 6'5 player. Pretty impressive. However, it is worth noting that he has dipped below his averages in his career. I'm putting him in the D tier for now. That's a tough one to judge, though. Last, but certainly not least, we'll call it to an extent, NBA Finals hero last season, Fred VanVleet. Folks, the jump he's made this year has just been incredible. 11 points per game in the past season. He goes into the playoffs, goes berserk in the NBA Finals, which eventually led to the Raptors knocking off the Warriors. This season, he sees his minutes jump pretty drastically, and it paid off. 17 points per game this year. The only thing that I am afraid of when it comes to Fred VanVleet For a shooting guard, the position he plays a lot, him and Kyle Lowry kind of switch back and forth. 6'1" on the court as the 2 guard. That's an undersized player. He still rebounds decently well, 4.4 rebounds per game as far as that goes. I'm going to put him in the C tier. I like Fred VanVleet. Solid player. Is going to have a good future with the Raptors. But until I am able to figure out how he meshes with that team, he's going to stay in the C tier at this point. So that is my list right there. If you have any, let me know what you think down in the comments. Do you disagree? Do you agree? Tell me who I got wrong and who I got right. And I appreciate everything. You can see right down here, my Twitter handle is @NuggetStation21. I'll have my social media links down in the description below for the YouTube video. For YouTube listeners and YouTube viewers, as I stated earlier, I am now on Twitch. I have a Twitch channel now. You can kind of catch me doing anything from tier lists like this to video gaming and kind of what the channel was before I turned it into a little bit of a sports channel. But if that interests you or anything like that, the link will be down in the description for you to check it out and hit that follow button. Again, this is Hot Takes with Holmes, so if you wanted to check out any of our past broadcasts, I'll have links to that in the description down below as well. And be sure to check out the first video in this series where we ranked the point guards for each starting playoff team, the top 16 seeds that was, which we posted a couple of weeks ago. With that being said, signing off for now, my name is Blake Holmes, and this has been Hot Takes with Holmes from Nuggets Nation 21. Have a great day.